Do you ever think or even make a decision to say, let me do a self-examination, a self-audit? Why would you do that? Because there comes a time in life you have to sit and ask yourself, let me reflect on who I was, who I am, and who I thought or was meant to be. Did I take the same path? Did I deviate from it? And now that maybe the path was not clear, what happens next? What do I do now? Because when we were young, we were very naive. Our perception and understanding of life was very different, closed, because we believed either what we heard or maybe what we had seen. We never had the full glimpse of the story. For example, if you had someone had a job, your perception would be they just go to this place, they do something, they get paid. Things like taxes, things like all the other deductions, separation between a gross salary and a net salary, those are not things that you're familiar to. And depending on the type of organization, hence the type of deductions, others had benefits, others had no benefits, others had allowances. When you got into most of these places, depending, some had these benefits, some didn't have, some the deductions were different. But one thing it did, it changed you. There were places you went to work. They looked good on paper, good on website, and good on referral basis. But when you got in, it hardened you. It became toxic. It became a world of survivors. Let's say it's a relationship. When you first understood relationship, you're too naive. It's supposed to be I like you like me, I give a rose, and all that naivety. You met someone, and all of a sudden, they hardened you. You became cold. You became heartless. And all of a sudden, you can't even remember who you really are. Unless you had a child with them or have a child with them. Every time you look at this little one, they remind me of this person. Yes, you can't change that. That child is innocent. However, a product of two people. And one product is cool. The other product is trouble. And that's how life is sometimes. Everyone's path is set differently. There's someone at a very young age who will get everything done. They'll have the right job, first the best education, the right job, everything. But their worst relationship or two, they have it all right. But the expectations that family and society has put on them make them question, is this even path worthy for me? Hence, some will leave lucrative jobs, lucrative markets, businesses, and say, I don't want any of that. I'd rather live in the mountains or in the hills or by the rivers or by the beach. I don't need this. Because that's how life is. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Remember, you got in very naive. You come out with too many arrows as you bleed all over. The bleeding due to rejection, pain, abuse. All these things were never in the beginning, but here you are. Did it change to become a monster? This week, we have two cases in the country. One, there's a guy who was recording a little child who was being attacked by ants. He was being very cautious. He didn't even get 2 inches, not even any close to the child. But he did make a post and say, if I go and help this child, well, in this place, I can't even see anyone. I'm the only person. If I help that child, and he could hear the cries of the child, if I help her, I can be accused of, what that is. How do I get myself out of it? So he said, let the ants do whatever the ants will do because we are the parents of this child. The child was crying at the background, asking for help, but he was scared. Why? Because if you know this country pretty well, you know one thing. Just because you go and see a scenario and save, you'll be in for a long time. Like last year, many men their cases were thrown out after realizing that 3/4 of them were innocent. And most of the alleged victims were children who were coached And sadly, these men lost over 10, 20 years locked up. There's no evidence. And so it created a different culture since last year. And that's where the battle of genders right now in the country is so scary. We have another case going on. A place I never really knew that much. I only knew it because I just used to pass it, but I never had any understanding of the history. Young little children, girls, minors, being taken advantage of by the women who are pimping them, who should be like their mothers, their aunties, their grandmas. And then the men who are the demand, creating a chain. What happens to the little girls? What's their perception of life? They're being betrayed by two people, two who should be protectors, older, who should be their fathers, their mothers, their grandfathers, but taking advantage of them. For one child being told that would be forced to lay with someone without even bricks. A little child at 13 years, 14 years, and this woman who's like the madam, taking money, paying them what, 100 shillings. That would be a cent if you work with a dollar. A child's life ripped off because someone is too hungry to exploit. What does that do to society? What does that do to the little children? What does it say about society? What does it say about who we are? Because those children need to be protected. But you know, the sad story is it wasn't happening very far. It's just happening near to the chief. And where there's a chief, there's a police station. You know how sad that is. You know what that tells monsters? That, hey, we can get away with anything in this country. No one. These are just two cases, but there are many different types of cases. Why am I bringing all this? Remember when I started? Naive. Now look at all this. This changes who you are. You are caught in two places. You have to go and do your own self-audit. Who I am, who are we, what are we, where are we? What is society? Because as you look at society, look at it. Look at the filth. Look at the pain. Look at the bitterness. When I got into internship, I was very naive. I remember I would call them respectful names like auntie, almost uncle. I remember I was that naive. And everything changed when my boss took me out for a lunch. It was supposed to be just a simple lunch. Little did I know that was to be my last meal. I was poisoned. Out of it, I ended up 2 days later being rushed to hospital. Little did I know that the poison was already in my system, eating my stomach little by little. 6 years down the line, after so many misdiagnoses, I learned what I have in my stomach, being a higher grade, a grade that can put me to bed quickly. I was just a HR intern. I wasn't being paid by the government. It happened to me. That changed me. I became a fighter for those who couldn't fight for themselves, an activist type of person, an advocate. But that wasn't me originally. When fighting for my nephew and my niece, protecting them, I became so familiar with understanding these children agencies, and I realized no one is there to protect them. They're just formalities. They get their money, they go home. When the accident happened, I had to go back to the drawing board and change so many things. If it was a relationship, I trusted someone, respected them. I ended up having a knife and a scissor to my neck. That changed me. Trust changed me. Having also grown up in a family whereby things were quite toxic, changed everything. Did it make me a monster? Or did it make me someone who decided, no matter how many blisters I have, I won't let the world make me hard? Because that's the path I chose. Never to have a hardened heart. However, look at society. Look at environments. Hard. Anger, pain, bitterness, rage. But you have a choice to make. To go back and ask yourself, whatever has happened to you has happened. Trust has been eroded. Love has faded. All these things are happening, but you still have a chance to say, yeah, I have the wounds. I have the scars. Even maybe I have the tattoos. But I won't let life harden me or make me a monster that it wants me to be. That's a choice you have to make. And that's why it's always good to sit back and do your own self-audit. That relationship, that marriage, all these things can harden you, but you still have a choice to take that lemon and make a lemonade out of it. That's a choice. Because society isn't getting any better. Communities aren't getting any safer. But you may be the one difference to say, not on my ground, not within where I am, and become the voice of reason. This is your call to sit back and say, will I sit back and watch things be eroded, or will I be the one to stand and say, enough is enough, and make the difference? Remember, it's a choice.